The biggest thing is making sure there's trust there, because then they know I have their best intention in mind to get it done. I would say anyone who's listening that either is getting into the role or nervous about that, don't, because if anything, we have an advantage because we're not coming in guessing. We're using data, we're using our knowledge. The more we work together, the better we make everybody look. The mindset is always I'm going to give more than I actually get back. But usually on paper, it's even or it's more.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Price, Sell, Paint podcast. I am Michael Murray, joined as always by the co-founder and CEO of PaintScout, Jon Bryant. And today we have a special guest, Jaclyn Rogers of AI Painting Plus in Columbia, Missouri. She is a sales rep. We're going to find out what the exact title is that you have, Jaclyn, but we're excited to hear from Jaclyn and how she's doing amazing things, selling painting services every single day. She's going to have a lot of awesome stories and tips and tricks. So Jaclyn, tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been working with AI and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks, first of all, just for having me come on. So super excited to be able to talk to you guys. So yes, I'm Jaclyn here in Columbia, Missouri. So I am the client relations manager. Now is the fancy title, if you will. A lot of my role is estimating and doing the sales, but as well as the business development here in our community. I've been with AI Painting Plus for 4.5 years. Really, my overall mission is to make those meaningful connections, build those relationships, and then let's talk paint, let's problem solve. Offering really high customer service expertise is really important. And then the painting part comes with that. So I'm super grateful. I get, my day every day looks really different. I might have 4 estimates a day. I might have 2 a day, but I'm going to be out in the community. So rather that's leading a networking group, going to my paint vendors, meeting with designers. It's really hands-on and it keeps me moving all the time. So
what got you into this, Jaclyn? I'm curious to know, because you're not a painter. You didn't come from painting. And I love that. It's great. I think it's so much opportunity in this industry, but what got you into this initially?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is retail management, bigger companies though. So like Eddie Bauer, the limited brands, White House Black Market. So higher in retail fashion. But for me, it's always been about the people, having the client book. Hey, we're going to have a big sale, knowing who my direct client is to pivot to. Really, I started doing that when I was in high school. So I was the Abercrombie kids walking around spraying the perfume and welcoming people in. Doing the visual floor sets was really fun, and being able to take a problem and solve it and then be able to allow other people to enjoy it. So that was something I really, really prided myself on for a while. COVID happened. I ended up having my son right before that and quickly kind of realized the retail crazy world never stops. So the mall, is open 7 days a week, looking at kind of the balance and what that kind of looks like. In the meantime, though, here in Columbia, Missouri, I had met Lacey and Austin Ilsley back in 2012 when I actually moved to Columbia. And during that time, I was working at a different job and I had invited Austin to come to networking groups and talk about AI painting. And he was like, what am I doing? But I was excited for him to talk about it. I see the company really kind of was born at that time. Anyways, full circle is I ended up kind of approaching them in 2021 and said, hey guys, I see you're growing your business. Austin's really busy estimating, painting, project management. Where can I maybe help you guys out? And to your point, Jon, I had a lot to prove. This was Austin's baby. It was his name. It's his company. And, we sat down and just said, what is this role going to look like? And let's create it, tailor it to me, but let's also be able to prove that I can sell paint, even though I'm not a painter. So for me, it was a pretty quick way to engage on going to ride-alongs, shadowing. Quickly, though, the customer service piece, the listening was super easy for me. It was ooh, here's what you're hearing. I hear you say. The intimidating factors is I would walk in a room and be like, how am I going? Well, I don't know how to measure any of these things, which is what you shouldn't worry about as a sales rep, by the way. The estimating part is the easiest part. So anyways, yeah, they really took a chance on me. Lacey and I had worked previously at a job. She knew I was really competitive. She knew I'm a go-getter. I'm not one that someone needs to tell me to go do something. I'm probably doing that and 10 other things. And yeah, it's just been so cool to see the small business culture obviously in the painting world with contractors, very male dominant, but I think the women are underutilized for a lot of things. And I used to have a little bit of head trash about that. I would, meet a sweet older man for an exterior project and he'd say, well, you're not going to be the painter. And I used to be like, oh man, now I'm like, you're right. I'm not. But let's talk about what you're looking for and, make sure we're a good fit for each other. And I would say anyone who's listening that either is getting into the role or maybe are nervous about that, don't, because if anything, we have an advantage because we're not coming and guessing. We're using data, we're using our knowledge, we job costs. So we go back and look at those things. But it was a really cool way to end up in the industry, but also honestly super random. When people ask me like, how can I find a Jaclyn? I say, go to the mall, like go to the retail workers that are busting their butt and spending so much time and energy and making the wheels on the bus turn. Like that's who you're looking for to hire.
Yeah, so cool. Let's maybe sit a little bit in that idea of, you said, being a woman in this space and, meeting with the clients. This is something that I think is a superpower in our industry and underutilized to some extent of like how much opportunity there is to build a career in this space. So maybe talk a little bit about that experience. You said you had some head trash and what did that
Sure.
look like?
Yeah, I think on two ends, right? Like you have a team that is hoping you're going to produce work for them. And then they're hoping, well, I hope she knows what she's doing. Because if not, I'm going to be the one on the other side feeling the repercussions. So, creating the safe space with your crews, with your project managers, with your owners on wanting to learn, you have to be open-minded because you're going to mess it up. Like you're going to have things that you maybe didn't do correctly. And so I think being able to be coachable is really, really important. The second layer of that, in my opinion, is just not overthinking it and feeling like, well, I'm going to listen to everything you're looking for. And then if we can't do it, then we're going to have those conversations. And I know a lot of things that Austin and I have worked together just through our years together is, he trusts me to make that decision on a job. If say I am questioning something, and then we go back and we say, hey, maybe don't do it like that again. Whether it's like wallpaper removal or maybe it's on a certain equipment rental or something that maybe isn't, maybe there's not an SOP for that. And I'm a very type A, I need to know exactly how it happens. And for me, that was a little pivot because it's like, guess what? There's a million ways to do it, but as long as blank happens, that is okay. So I think for women, right? And again, we're busy. We got lots of other things. Our mind's going everywhere. Just give yourself grace on what that looks like, but you got to be eager to pivot if you needed to. We switched estimating softwares this year. I was so excited and also really nervous because I'm like, I only know one way to do it, right? I think. But with that has been, again, significantly better on all ends where now I really get to focus on you as the client. And again, the estimating should not be the dauntingness that takes you a long time. Yeah, I was super slow. My first couple bids, I think I was there for 2.5 hours, like probably just worrying about typing in data, not finding more out about the client. So for me, it was slowing down that process to be able to speed up on other ways, if that makes sense. But yeah, again, I think the women for me, and I love to, when I'm setting the table and having my sales process, is I'm very honest about it. I'm not trying to impose that I'm the one doing the work. I'm not trying to act like I have done it before, right? So, some people that I'm competing against are the painter coming in and they have a piece of paper and they're handing it to the client. And when I like to take my clients through my process and say, hey, we're going to use these rates because we know what it takes. And then, we job costs and make sure our teams are set up for success. And if it's an ideal client, right, then they appreciate that. They're like, oh, well, that's fantastic. You're not going to come knock on my door and tell me you need more paint because you guys guessed wrong. We're using data that we know is accurate. And again, not all the cases, right? But a lot of the time, that's what we're up against in our world. And we want to slow down that process so the client sees the value, but they also trust you. And so for me, that's the biggest thing is making sure there's trust there, because then they know I have their best intention in mind to get it done as well.
I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I hear you saying that you're using production rate estimating, right? You have, data science behind like your numbers, but you're also like highlighting that for the customer or the prospective
Sure.
customer, and using that to like, somewhat like kind of compete, I guess, against somebody who isn't. Am I hearing that right? Like that sounds like a pretty cool strategy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I like to be super honest and open about what I'm doing. Because again, if they know, right, if I just told them or they're under the assumption, and also for the record, there's so many awesome women who are painters. So that just is not Jaclyn. I'm a messy person. There's no way I could do it. So just want to put that out there. But so maybe they assume it, maybe we talk about it. But to your point, Michael, yes, I use it as leverage it and like just an opportunity to say like, hey, we are organized, we are professional, we do change it up, right? Like we this last year got to speed up a lot of rates. Well, guess why? Because we changed crews and we were able to grow, and we're like, man, we're outbidding ourselves. And so, those are things. Now, again, in my sales process, if my client already told me, well, you're my second bid, or I'm going to get another bid, I always say, hey, Mr. Jones, like, I want to create this space where you feel comfortable enough with me that you can tell me, Jaclyn, your numbers are way off, and let's talk about it. And I'll say that not where we need to negotiate, but also maybe like, what are we missing? What was it? Was there something that I'm giving you that they're not? And so the details for me are really important, but also being able to speak to that too. So they know I'm not just guessing on what those things are. Now, in my mind, of course, I might have an idea of cost and budget and what I can kind of think, but I'm like, let's use data, give me 15 minutes and I'm going to sit back down with you and then let's talk about it. And 90% of the time they're like, oh, wow. Okay. Really? Yeah. This is great. So if you're not using a estimating software, if you're not using PaintScout, you need to, because that is it.
This is the message that we hope everyone takes away.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we're all fans. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned also at the start, like that process was taking you 2.5 hours. Where are you at today?
Obviously, it depends on the project, right? So 30 minutes, maybe. I'm a talker. Obviously, if I'll lean into it, if I know I don't have an appointment right afterwards and my sweet client wants to tell me about her whole story, like I'm here for it. That's my bread and butter, is being able for them to open up and get emotional with me about something they don't like or what they really love or their neighbor down the road or something. And then I'm like, well, let's make it happen. So AI Painting, our mission is to paint joy into people's homes. And that's an emotional thing. And I say why we say it, because it's true. The joy for us is just being present, owning it, and then your attitude when you show up to work. So there's something behind that. And, in our world of painting, it's usually bittersweet, right? You're moving out of a house you're getting ready to sell, or you're buying a new house, or maybe someone had passed away and now you have to create a new space. Maybe your kid's going to college and now the room turns into a office. There's a lot of feelings attached to that. So that's where our joy comes in, because it makes it just bittersweet. And again, when the client can send me a photo afterwards and they're so happy and, they want to just be proud of that space, like that's a kick-ass feeling. That makes them feel so good. So I love being a part of that.
So it sounds like the estimate creation, though, it's not the half an hour, right? It's like,
no, sorry. That's just
you've
me.
probably got that dialed.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I got that. John, you're like, what the heck? No. Yeah. So yeah. Sorry. No, that itself
Please tell me it's less.
So fast. No, so fast. So obviously what I love is the templates. I have my projects kind of set up, and an estimates get scheduled from our team, or if I do it, I go ahead and create like the template that I'm going to use. Obviously it's so great because we have if it's an interior, we have all of our interior photos. If it's exterior, it's exterior for the presentations. And then I have all my templates loaded with all my things. So the more prepared you are walking in, again, I have my tablet, 5 minutes, boom, boom, boom. Here you go. And you can sign on the spot and I'll take your payment right here. Yeah. I mean, I'm spoiled. I love it. Yes.
That's great. That was the correct answer. Perfect.
Okay. Sorry. This is my long story short.
Yes.
That's funny. How often in your day-to-day interactions do you get questions about the AI name of your company having to do with artificial intelligence?
All day, every day. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. All the time. Obviously, I always say it's a really cool story when I'm asking them, how do they know about us or heard about us? Or if they haven't asked me that before, but I'll say like, hey, what do you know about AI painting? And they're like, oh, yeah, AI. And so it's Austin Ilsley. It's our owner. 2013 is when he opened the business. And so I joke, I'm like, he's just a guy. He's just a guy that was very wise. And, we now have a great brand. We have a great community involvement. We've put ourselves on the map. Once you see the logo, you can't unsee it, if that makes sense. So a lot of people know who we are. And so I don't see rebranding in our future for that reason. But then I lean into, well, we do use software. We do use production rates.
Yeah.
There's our AI, but I'll say, I promise, my team lead blank is going to be here. They're real, and we kind of laugh about it. Yeah. Right.
That's funny. Austin's
real
parents were like
Austin.
so ahead of the curve with this.
Exactly. Yeah. There. But I'm like, he's a guy that just was very wise about that.
Right.
So, yeah.
I hope he bought all of the AI painting and related domains back in the day because he could probably sell something or something.
You're right. I don't know. If not, Austin, get on it. Yeah.
That's right.
On it.
I'd love to talk more about, you mentioned this before with just like some of the involvement you have in networking groups and how that is impactful in, I think your work, but also even just like in, confidence and just like building relationships and things like that. I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about like how much is networking and relationship building like impactful in your everyday role?
Absolutely. So, one thing when taking this position with AI painting, I didn't want to just do appointments. And so for me, I didn't want to have to maybe not sit around and wait to get an appointment. I'm the type where I'm like, ooh, there's so much opportunity. I want to be able to self-generate business, but also the reputation. And then it kind of trickles for that. So I plugged myself pretty heavily in the chamber here in town. There's a women's network division, which is the largest division of our chamber. So we have around 300 members. It's a women's network, but males are in it too. What does that look like? Typically, it's insurance agents, real estate agents. There's no other painters. There's no other contractors, which is crazy. So they're growing into roofing and getting some more. But for me, I was like, in order to show up and for them to put a name to a face, getting involved in committees, again, connecting with other people over a coffee, obviously talking about paint because then I'm fresh in mind with them. But I would go into those events, say it's a breakfast with a bunch of 300 plus people. I would go in with the intention of, I'm going to go talk to 3 people I've never talked to before. Then I talk to them just obviously to get to know them, but then also follow up with them about painting. Hey, if you ever need painting, let's talk about it. So for me though, again, I had the will of wanting to do it, obviously figuring out time blocking on, is it, if I'm not at an appointment, then how am I generating the business? So the chamber was a really big portion of that. The second one that really does well here for us in Columbia is BNI. So Business Networking International at painting conferences. Some people have biased opinions. Some people are like, it's awful. Some people like me are like, I love it. But again, I really plugged into that. I'm the only painter in my group. I ended up taking some leadership positions with that. And for me, though, is the visibility. But then for professionally, though, Michael, I was able to, be able to get up in public speak or, you get yourself uncomfortable to really feel more comfortable doing it. And so that's really, really been cool. So I've done that the whole time I've been with AI painting. I started AI painting in February, and then the next month I was like, all right, sign me up for all the things. I'm just going to dive in. And then people laugh at me. They're like, well, you're everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be everywhere because then you remember me and then you remember AI painting and it's a really ripple effect for that. So for me, I think for sales reps, you can't wait around for the jobs to come to you. I know I've talked to others who will ask me, they'll say, how do you get referrals or how do you get a lead? And I'll say, just by authentically talking to people, not coming at you sharky, like, let me give you a painting bid, but more like, well, where do you guys live? Or what projects do you have happening? And then the painting conversations come into play. Typically year to date, I usually generate about 40% of the estimates I go and meet or that I close. And to me, that's really, really important. Obviously, we're a college town here in Columbia, so seasonal summer slower, right? The population goes away, but then our residential might spark up. So, I've met, sorority house moms. I've met that's a whole new relationship that I get to meet. Mizzou athletics, we've done some work with the university. And these are all relationships that I authentically met. And then it kind of came out of a trickle effect for us too. Property managers is really important. We came into this year thinking we were going to probably do a lot more commercial and have me just on the res side for now and kind of figure that out. But that's kind of what I do best, is like get you where I can really connect with you. The gatekeeper part, I haven't really worked on that yet. I want to talk to the decision maker because I want to be the influence. And then I'll say, hey, when you have your board meeting, if I can bring any value to you guys making this decision, like invite me. I'd love to come and check it out. And I haven't got to really do that yet. And I don't want to be forceful, but I also want to be purposeful, because at the end of the day, we want to make their job easier. But really just having those connections have really, really grown us and really have grown me so much professionally just in my time here as well.
Super cool. So I have a question for everybody listening who, has considered BNI or maybe gone to BNI and it hasn't worked for them.
Yeah.
Or joined the chamber and is like, that was a waste of time.
Yeah.
It sounds like you really have found a way to get value out of this. And you mentioned, authentic conversations. Is there anything else you would add to that? Like ways to get the best value out of something like BNI where, you're coming, people are expecting you to give referrals. You're hoping to get referrals. Like walk maybe our listeners through that a little bit of how that's working for you.
Absolutely. I think for me is going into it not being selfish, to be honest. Like your time obviously is important. You're getting paid to be there, right? But also who else maybe are you surrounding yourself that you genuinely can help? And so the mindset is always like, I'm going to give more than I actually get back. But usually on paper, it's even or it's more. And so I, of course, want to go paint everyone's house and meet everybody. But I really try to be purposeful with people who I know I can help out. And so an example is yesterday, I had a client who I was meeting for a siding staining project. Well, unfortunately, their whole house was pretty much falling apart. And that's not sometimes a fun conversation to have. The great thing is I have people I trust that I know can take care of them. And it's, I'm making from beginning to end my client feel like, wow, they have a trusted partner. And I'll say it's a trusted partner we work for or work with, because usually we're right behind them once their repairs are done. And I'll say, you can call whoever you want, or I'll ask, have you used anyone else before? But hey, I have someone who really, you I think should, look into. And then, say I leave the appointment, then I'll call them and say, hey, I just met this client that I think is a good fit for you. I'm going to go ahead and share their information, kind of tell them. So yeah, there's legwork on it. Absolutely. You're not going to go to those meetings and be like, let it all come to me. It might, but those are the people usually that don't do the best in the role. Mm-hmm. Now, again, my role is different. Like Austin can't commit to joining a BNI because he has too many other things happening, where someone like me, it is part of my duty to self-generate, put myself out there, but then what am I putting into it too? So if I have a day, let's say in the winter, it's a snowy, rainy day, well, I'm not just sitting on my hands. I might be doing Zoom calls with some of my connections or emailing them about maybe other opportunities or things like that too. So definitely having a strategy behind it helps. I don't think there's a bad strategy. I think that everyone walks in those rooms feeling the same. It's more about what do you really hope you can really get out of it, but also allocating the time to do it too. And I enjoy connecting with people. So when I walk in a room and there's a lot of people I don't know, I love that. If my husband came in a room like that, he would not like that. And so I look for those people that maybe don't want to be there, because I think I might influence your experience. And now you might think, man, to come back to this, I just met somebody. So, because we're all humans, right? It also depends on their mood, right? It depends on their day. What if you're having a really bad day? And yes, I have bad days, right? But it's also like, all right, check out. I'm going to spend an hour here. What did I get out of it too? So have a plan, have a strategy. We're all in it together. Really, those groups are really tailored to help each other. I would say if you visited a group before and you didn't feel any of those things I just mentioned, that's probably not the group for you, but there's probably one 20 minutes down the road. So
one of the things that when I did BNI, Jaclyn, the thing that stuck out to me was the concept of giver's gain, and understanding how to network. I think it was a great opportunity to learn that. As somebody who, you hear the word, and I think networking, you're like, oh, that's probably me going to a room and having a business card and being like,
Yeah.
here, business. And
Yeah.
other people are doing the
Right.
same. And it's like, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just handing out business card.
And then you're like,
And
cool,
how,
nothing.
yeah. And then you do that one time and you realize how distasteful it is to everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's like learning how
Yeah.
to be present and real and understand that, like, I think identifying opportunity, like you mentioned,
Yep.
it's just such a key part of it, where it's like,
Yep.
you go to a job, you see something, you're aware, you're in the right headspace, and then you can come and give something to someone else. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
loved it for that reason. So
Yep. But in our again, painting world at PCA and those events I've attended, again, people will be like, oh, it's too much time, and like, of course it does take time, but I always say sometimes the season of life is not ready for it. A little plug for BNI is you still can go visit groups every 6 months without even being a member. So say you're like just in a rut and you're like, I gotta freshen it up. Well, just go check it out. Again, I really think, to your point, Jon, like, people just expect that immediate satisfaction or like right away, and it just takes time in order for that to kind of come back to you too. Like, being patient. Obviously, I couldn't do any of this without Lacey and Austin's support, right? Because when I go to these certain things, I have certain times on my schedule, the client can't book it. And that's how I position it too. I'm like, this meeting is just as important as a client meeting, or I wouldn't be here, because I want, my client might want my Tuesday 8 a.m. slot. Well, that's when my meeting is. And it's just as important. If you're like, oh, I can take it off, then you probably shouldn't be a part of it. So, because I'm setting the precedence of AI painting understands the importance, but without having their support, I couldn't do it. They definitely see the value behind it. So make sure they have your back. Obviously, if your boss or supervisor maybe doesn't know or whatever, have them come with you. Obviously, if I'm presenting or if there's something going on, I get Lacey and Austin in that room, and Austin loves it. Lacey usually, she gets nervous in crowds like that, but she's always happy after she leaves. She's like, thanks, Jaclyn, I needed that. Because it's cool, obviously, for them to see me in that role too.
Yeah, I hear the long-term mentality, right? Like, we're recording this in the middle of the summer. It'll come out in a few weeks or whatever. And like, this time of year, most sales reps are, just as busy as they're going to be, whatever that is. Like, this is the busy time of year. And, normally in our industry, most sales reps are, the slowest time of year is like in 6, 7, 8 months, whatever, let's call that winter. And it's just like, to your point, if you're looking for like value from BNIs and chambers, now's the time to start joining.
Yep.
I think too often sales reps in our industry think of doing those things when their calendar's like half full and they've got all this time available, and they're like, all right, I'm going to go, it's January, I'm going to go join BNI. And, by February, I'm going to have all these leads, and, we're going to have this great winter. And it's just like, most things in life don't work that way.
Yeah. Right.
So, but how do you balance that, right? So like, that's hard. You're busy, obviously. You mentioned before, you're a mom, you're kicking butt, you're selling jobs, you've got all these appointments, and you're finding time. Like, how do you schedule these networking activities and, maybe lunches with people and, different things like that? Like, how do you figure out ways to divvy up your time with all of these different commitments?
Absolutely. The goal really, if let's say there's no meetings happening, 4 estimates a day usually is kind of my cap. And so the reason we kind of discovered that is making sure there's a lunch barrier at some point, right? Or food or what have you, but also giving me enough time to do those extra things. And so, for us, it's pre-scheduling it out. The sooner the better if I have dates to potentially put those out. But if I have pockets of time in my schedule, then absolutely, Michael, I'm like reaching out to people to fill those spots. This morning, example, my first appointment of the day wasn't feeling well. I needed to move it. Well, then I popped over to another networking club that I'm a part of that I can just show up at. They don't take attendance, so it's a little different. But I was like, hey, instead of getting caught up on emails, like, I'm going to go talk to some people and put my face out there, because I know I haven't been there in a few weeks. So I do self-manage. We use Google Calendar. Everyone on my team can see where I'm at and what that looks like too. But I think creating that work-life balance as well. So, I don't do estimates on the weekends. I don't do evening estimates. Now, obviously, maybe circumstantial, right? I'm sure I would probably say, yeah. But that's kind of when my other networking things are happening. Now, sometimes, to your point, it all happens at the same time, and it's all just crazy at the same time. Those aren't usually every day. The last probably month and a half, I had 4 estimates every day, 5 days a week. So, some of the networking thing looked a little smaller. The one thing that stayed consistent was, my women's network commitment and then the B&I commitment, because I'm like, ooh, they take attendance and I'm not going to look bad on paper, so I will be there. But it is making sure I'm holding myself to that standard and accountability. If I say I can do it, then I'll be there. You have weeks though, right? That you're like, oh, I have a busy week. I'm so excited. And then your kid's sick, or then you get sick, right? And then stuff happens. My son was a kindergartner this year, and I'm the one that got sick, not him. But I was like, no, I can't. I have too many things happening. Life is going to still happen. It's still going to happen. And for me, making sure that I get them back on my schedule, make that the priority, selling the paint jobs, providing the work, providing the opportunities for my guys is number one. The other things are things that are part of my job. We have a weekly meeting with our team, with our job leader and all of our painters. And we talk about all the things that I'm doing, because I'm like, hey, you guys make my job really easy, because word of mouth to me is huge. And they see you out in the community, they see your vans, they see your yard signs. And then they're calling me to be like, hey, I saw your painters, I want to get a quote. I'm like, you guys make it easy. But they don't usually see me. I have an office, but I'm not usually in that office. I'm usually in the car or out at people's houses or at networking groups. So I like to tell them kind of the why behind it. Not that maybe even they're that worried about it, but I like to show the data that proves that too, just to create the trust and the family and that kind of good juju vibe. You don't want like, oh, Jaclyn's just out here selling a paint job just to sell it. No, I make sure it's a good fit for them, but also to make sure that they're staying busy too. So
talk a little bit more about that. So it seems like, 4.5 years of doing this didn't come from the painting industry. One of the things, you mentioned when you first started, like estimating was your concern, but you realized that, coming up with the price was less of the concern, and it had more to do with, like, I think, what you just talked about, which is preparing the crew to be successful. And, so it sounds like you've, gone through like a learning journey over that 4.5 years that maybe somebody who's listening hasn't learned yet. What are some of the things that you've learned, some of the tips, tricks, when you're putting together a bid or, I don't know, taking pictures or whatever the things that you're doing so that you're putting the crew into a position to win? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the overall thing is not, being daunted by the space that you're walking up to. So maybe that's the house you get ready to park in front of, or a commercial space you're walking in. I feel like now that when people get in paint or have been in it or starting to get in it, all you look at is all the imperfections everywhere. And so I'd be like, looking at everything. So I think number one would be familiarizing yourself with the products to actually make it look good. Because as we know, like, prep is really important, but also if you're not using good products, it's not going to look good either. So familiarizing, whether that's partnerships with your vendors or working again with your job leaders on your top 3, maybe it's like, what's your go-to wall paint? What's your go-to trim paint? What's your go-to cabinet paint? And then on the exterior, looking at those substrates too. For me though, right now, if I get an estimate scheduled, I go ahead into, again, PaintScout is our software we use. And I will go ahead and create the estimate. I can future date it. So if, say, I got scheduled today for Monday, I can go ahead and future date it for Monday. I can go and load in. I like to preload in all of like interior wall paint products on like a product specification. And for me, then when they tell me what they want to use, I can just delete it. And now I can just switch it over. Saves so much time. I also love the fact that I can, if I know, I'm going to be 20 minutes out and the service might be a little weird, I can go ahead and do all that, put it on airplane mode and be ready to go. Or I can go ahead and copy it. So now I can just edit versus having to do that. Obviously, if you don't have PaintScout, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But these are things that really allowed for me to, right. Yeah. These are the things for me that allowed it to free up like that time, where before, if I was going to measure a living room, I'd be measuring all the walls, and then I'd go back and measure all the trim, and then I'd measure all the ceilings. And now PaintScout really makes it easy, where I say, oh, walls, here's the measurement. Oh, now I have trim and here's the ceiling. And based on the one number I use, now it gives me everything else. And so it really, for me, has been able to clean it up and not make it feel daunting, if you will, to just be confused. Now, of course, there still is things where I'm like, oh, I can't, a production rate doesn't solve this. That is where my experience does kick in. So I would say if you're starting out 6 months, a year in, lean on, your production managers who knows what works and what doesn't work. And I usually come to them not with, hey, what do I need? I'll say, hey, I have this bid for 8 hours, 2 gallons of paint and 1 washing hours. Does that sound good? And then, they sometimes tell me no. And then sometimes they're like, hey, no, you can go down, or yeah, let's try it, and then it's on us. So once it actually happens, was that right? So you gotta do that. One thing I also created is I use like a Google Sheet. I call it my PaintScout like task tracker. So if say I come across something that I'm like, ooh, I maybe want to change that for the future, then I put it like basically assign myself to look into it. And then anyone else can work on it too. But when we have our weekly production and sales meetings, I bring those up. I'll say, hey, I noticed, the brick spread rate seemed a little low. Here's what I noticed. Do you guys feel comfortable with me changing that? And it's an open, candid conversation. I think you're going to mess up. The good news is it is just paint. We can fix it. I obviously have overbid. I've also underbid. And, I'm always like, okay, I'm understood. No one wants to feel like you messed it up on purpose. And so that's where, when we switched over softwares, I said, hey guys, like, give me some grace because this is new, and just know it's going to continue to change and we're going to get better. But I need the open conversation if it's not right, if it's not right, because I can't fix it if I don't know. So I think being able to have a strong relationship with whether it's your owner, your manager, or your production team that's doing the work, create that space. When I came into it, Michael, I was nervous. These guys didn't know me. I was the only female besides Lacey coming in. And they're like, she, what does she do? And so for me though, it was like, yeah, I'm going to put the work and the effort in and just kind of figure it out too. I like listening to audiobooks, maybe older book, but I love like Good to Great by Jim Collins. Like, you got to have the right people. It doesn't matter where they're going, and I truly believe that. My other one I probably listened to a million times is Soundtracks by Jon Acuff. And it just talks about like the positive mindset all the time. And the more you feed your brain negative, bad vibes, and you're going to feel that way. And if I'm having a bad day, you better believe I'm like, ooh, I'm listening to, or if I just got told no 3 times in a row, I'm like, man, all right, okay. I used to take it really personal. I used to want everyone to tell me yes, and have came to realize like that's not the case, and that's okay. I'd be like, well, they really liked me, they really liked me. It's like, well, it's not about you, it's their house, or whatever. So you got to get over that. For me though, it's humbling, when maybe someone tells me no, but then they give me, a rebuttal. I'll ask them, do you mind to give me feedback? And they'll say it was a tough decision, but, so-and-so could do all my repairs and all this. And, those are things I bring up to Austin and Lacey and just say, well, maybe we need to look into it, rather it's installing kitchen cabinets or just doing things that we don't do yet. And I always say yet, because you never know, we're AI painting plus. So no, I'm just kidding. So we've leaned into some things, but in our world, I always say like we're moving forward and we're just creating the open space really from your client's point of view. Ask them for feedback. Why did you hire us? I just had a peer group call with Nolan Consulting Group, and Mark had said, reach out to your client, ask them, why did they choose you? And I love that, because it's not that I want my ego boosted, but I really want to know too, like, what did I do that allowed you to tell me yes? Maybe my bid was higher. Maybe, maybe mine was a lot more detailed, but they saw the value behind that too. So assume you can do it. Be positive. I'm always open for a call or something. I tell people I don't know everything, but I know a lot. I feel like I know a lot. So.
Well, it's we'll add on something to that, which is that last month was your record month.
It was,
so
yes.
You might know a thing or two, and that's awesome. Yeah, I was really excited to hear that. After 4.5 years, it's hard to get record months.
Yes,
I hope that keeps. You've
yeah.
had a number of months before you, so that's pretty great.
Yeah.
What did it look like?
With that new software, probably.
Yeah, the new software, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
or shameless,
Jaclyn,
you have to remember.
Shameless. So walk me through it. Why do you think you had a record month? How did that happen?
Absolutely. I think again, we're in Missouri, so seasonal with weather. Obviously, this shift of like, oh, I got to get it done now. Exterior season turns into maintenance at some point, right? But for me, though, it was more about just talking to people that still just hadn't came to that decision yet. 30 days is typically where we want to close them. But sometimes, depending on the project, if they have other fires they have to put out, they're not going to say yes right away. They have other commitments. And so for me, again, I say really low pressure with them, knowing though, and I'll give you a little pressure, Jon, if you're trying to get it done by this specific date. So let's move forward if this is what we're trying to do. But my mindset really was creating, again, I was able to prepare things just a lot easier, like I just described, with having my company cam set up, having the templates ready to go, and just being able to sit down with them and get them to sign right there with me if they were ready to go, or if not, setting the next step for what that looked like. My win rate was right at 40%, 42%. So we just had a ton of opportunities. And for me, the win of the dollars was in the 60s. So it was even though I had some smaller jobs, I was able to capitalize more of the revenue piece on that. It was close to 300,000, which was fantastic for me in a residential market in a 150,000 people population in the summer, because all of our college kids left. And I say that because, we still get people that live in Airbnbs or new housing and rental properties, things like that too. So yeah, it was great. To your point, record breaking is hard because then you're mad at yourself that you have to try to do it again, right? 230, 235 has always been the number that I've been watching to get over. And it was significantly higher, which was good. Now we're sitting today, June 12th. I'm not having a record breaking month yet, but for me, I still use it as motivation and not defeated. I try, I don't want to come into feeling defeated. I break it down, each week, what does that equal? But usually in our world, if I don't get it this month, I know that those still clients there for the next month as well. So, again, I think being able to allow yourself the grace and the space to stay on them and not get burnt out, but also not to get just super frustrated at yourself too. Because if you're just walking around mad, you're not helping anybody out. So
yeah. I actually have a follow-up question kind of from a statement you made previously, but I think it ties into having a record month. I think you said it was hard, it's hard getting no's and you want to be liked. What do you think changed for you that you said you realized it's about the homeowner?
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. How did you get there? Because I know there's context here. There's so many people I interact with who have that exact same feeling, which is that it's client loved me. Everything's great. They're going to go ahead. And then the client never calls them back.
Right.
And they're like, well, what was it? They liked me. And I think that that's a very common mentality. And so the fact that you've gotten through that, and you've had a record month, how'd you get there?
I think just unfortunately, Jon, I feel like the repetition of it and then being able to see is this my arsenal? Is this going to fire me up or is this going to bring me down? And, if I came home and I'm in a bad mood and then my 6-year-old son's telling me about something we did at kindergarten, it's I'll leave it at the door, right? It's not, it's paint jobs. And we're very grateful for this world, but also the next day is going to start over. I mean, you can get an email at any moment of someone accepting a $100,000 project. You don't know. And I think just like I mentioned, I like listening to personal development audiobooks, the Energy Bus is another one. I just challenge people to that. I'm always in the vehicle, so I like doing audiobooks. And I feel like that just allows for me to be okay with feeling like that. The other thing I would say is just putting it on paper, maybe figuring out, okay, is there a pattern as to why they told me no? And then going back through as well. The third thing is just asking those clients for feedback. I've had multiple clients who have told me no, given me good feedback. Maybe it's price, maybe it's just timeline. Those are sometimes things we can't help and we can't do, right? Because we're not going to negotiate to a reason or to a circumstance thing. But for me, I think maybe the easiest, hardest part is just realizing there's so many other opportunities, but I would handwrite them notes either way. And so I always handwrite a note to a completed project. I might go ahead and write out the name and address and have it ready before the job even starts. But I've also handwrote the notes that people told me no, because I still want them to know that I appreciated the opportunity. And I don't even say about painting, more like you look forward to staying connected. And I've gotten a client even from that. Like they hired someone else for a different project. And then they were like, hey, you took the time to just say, hey, it was nice to meet you. And thanks for creating that space to feel good. But I also tell my clients that too, just in the sales process. I'll say, at any moment, I want you to tell me if we're not a good fit. And I hope I've created a comfortable enough space that you can say that to me. Like no hurt feelings, but I want you to, like to lead them to know. You don't want them to tell but I want you to feel comfortable enough to just be like, yeah, hey, sorry, it's not going to work. We were going to do some concrete work here at my house. And, I was like, we got multiple bids and I really didn't know what we were looking at. And ultimately we went with someone who was kind of in the middle, but he kind of did that same thing. And to me, it showed me like, yeah, they care about the value of me and trust. And so I feel like that's just really important. So, the self-care, positive, whatever books. And then again, looking at the commonality, because did I over communicate? Was I too, detailed? Maybe they were direct and a high D and that didn't turn them off. So just trying to look for those patterns, I think, continue to make yourself just better.
Yeah, I mean, Jaclyn, we've met before, and so I knew this about you already, but I think anybody that hasn't met and they're just, now we've been recording for about 45 minutes, I think your energy and your positivity, it's pretty obvious at like, that's just who you are as a person. And I think that has a huge part to do with your success and, just building relationships. You just seem, you come across as a very genuine person. And I think like you have this mentality that you're just going to like look to go, meet somebody that's like an interesting person, have an awesome conversation. If you end up painting for them, great. If you don't, that's okay. It's just another like awesome person that you get to go interact with along your journey of life.
Yep.
And I think like that is so refreshing and it's not just like transactional. And,
absolutely.
Again, I think that's why you're having so much success in this new industry over the last 4.5 years or so.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I do truly believe that too. Because as we all know, if you're around someone who's in a bad mood and you're like, oh, I'm in a bad mood, and I tell people
it's contagious.
It definitely is. And, for me, like, of course, there's things on fire all the time. But if I carried that into a client appointment or to a meeting I'm supposed to lead, like, I feel like everyone would walk out like, never mind. Yeah. Obviously, though, right? Like the end of the day, I'm tired. I'm like, oh, I'm ready to go to sleep. I go to bed pretty early. I wake up really early. I like to go work out at 5 a.m. That's for me, that's my like time that I just want to go be crazy. But of course, like today, I had a late night last night. I was like, I'm not going to go work out. And that's okay too. I'm still walking into the day really happy, obviously get to be on this call with you guys. And yeah, I appreciate you saying that because that is a thing I'm very proud of. And, I want my son who's going to be a first grader to see that and I want to be that influence behind him too, when he's making friends and when he's doing all his activities and things like that. So thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I guess as we start to wrap, Jaclyn, is there anything else that, we haven't asked you about? Any like tips, tricks, advice? Is there any just like last parting wisdom that you would give to somebody who just, experiencing that same hustle that you have every single day, right? We're all trying to, just be successful in the painting industry. Is there anything else that you would love to be able to tell the industry or tell anybody that's listening?
Yeah, I would say a couple things would be connect with others, like-minded people. I really believe, competitors in town, colleagues in town, the more we work together, the better we make everybody look. They don't make me look good if I have someone with a paper and, to be able to level up in a level playing field just only helps our industry continue to look better. So whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's at Sherwin-Williams and grabbing each other's cards, I want to create that space where if I have a painting contractor in town. They do a lot of new construction, and if we see each other and they always honk and wave at me, and I'm like, for me, cool, we're out here, we're busy, this is great. I like that. So that's number one. I would say number two is get PaintScout if you don't have it. Don't be afraid of switching over. I think we were nervous. I was nervous. I'm not gonna lie, because it was like, I got to relearn. What do you mean? But you guys have made it so easy to do that. And then the third thing is just don't have the self-doubt. I would say I'm a confident person, but I'm not a cocky person. Someone definitely can come up to me and feel comfortable talking to me, but you also need to be proud of what you're doing too. So I think that, again, this world is growing. I think people that are just getting started out have way more advantages than what we had even 4 years ago. And you guys have been doing it a lot longer than me, but there's just so many other cool things out there. We love being a part of the PCA. We love being a part of Nolan Consulting Groups. Again, because my owners really saw the vision and they kind of put us there. And now I'm like, I know no different. That's my bar. My bar is really high. And yeah, I get involved, connect with others. And yeah, I'm just really excited for this year. So that's all I got.
Love it.
Jaclyn, that's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much. I think, for those, like you mentioned before, if you want to get in touch with Jaclyn, you said you were open to a call, maybe a call,
sure.
maybe an email.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I think your story is really inspirational. And I think of a lot of the, people in our community who, all these women doing great things. And I think it's such a awesome story you have, and one that we can really relate to and get some people connected. So yeah, if you feel like you need some connection, we'll figure this out, Jaclyn. And
I like it.
Yeah, we just thank you for your time. This is awesome. Really
Of
appreciate
course.
Jaclyn, Jaclyn, how do you want people to reach out to you? Do you want to share an email address or social media, or what would be the best way for somebody to connect? LinkedIn?
Yeah. Either I'll just do my email right now. So it's my first name. So here we go. Ready? Jaclyn. And then it's at, and then AI paintingplus.com. So again,
Sweet.
Jaclyn has no K or Q's. So yeah, reach out to me. Again, we can set up a phone call or all the things. And I'm sure I'll learn things from whoever I get to talk to too. So
amazing. Well, Jaclyn, thank you for being on the Price Sell Paint podcast. It's our pleasure. If you are following along and you enjoy the content, feel free to give us a like and subscribe. That's from our producers. They say we got to say that every time. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you, Jaclyn. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on the Price Sell Paint podcast.
Thanks, Jaclyn.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.